Hello and welcome to Lewis Nichols Life Stories in association with Shane Solomon. And genuinely, when I say this, I think this is the most excited I have ever been for an interview. I've changed my questions about 10 times. So Jamie Foreman, thank you for coming down today.
My absolute pleasure, Lewis. Thank you for inviting us down.
No, thank you. And you and your beautiful wife, Julie, came down yesterday. We spent some time in Newquay. We had a drink and got to know you a little bit.
Or two, yeah.
Definitely or two. How have you found it so far, the flight?
Wonderful. I mean, I've always had a very, very wonderful feeling for Cornwall. It goes back to when I first filmed down here and got to know the area and had the most loveliest time. And walking down Dharma Bay and, we were staying up at Rock. Nice. And then we moved up to St Anna Dock and we were staying in a little hotel there, which was fabulous. And so then I've always had a thing. And then a few years later, when roll on a little bit and I'd finished EastEnders, I was so exhausted and tired after that. I said to my wife, we must go down and have a little week down there. And it was in November. And all the waves were crashing and very Daphne du Maurier, And I've always had a really lovely feeling for Cornwall. It's a haven.
Yeah.
This place, It has a magical quality.
I have a feeling you're going to be back quite a bit.
Well, I'd like to. We'll come back and do some more with you. Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Normally with life stories, we touch a little bit about kind of the guest's childhood and growing up and, and then their career. But with you had such an eventful childhood, Colourful, more than most. So I want to kind of talk about the family dynamics. So, when you were growing up, what was it like, with your mum, your dad? Were you kind of a close-knit family?
Yeah, it's very difficult when you always look back on the halcyon days of your childhood. And I had a lovely family around me. My auntie Nell, who was like a grandmother to me, but she was only young, but then she seemed so much older. And I spent a lot of time with her, which down at Lambeth North, the area, Hercules Road and Lambeth North. And I used to spend most of my summers with her, and my father bought a caravan. I think they get rid of us for the summer. So they used to send us down to the caravan and we'd spend down at Hastings and we'd spend a lot of time down there. And then they send different relatives down. Do you want a holiday? You can go down and look after the kids, Because my mother and father had a pub in the borough area, which is where I say I always come from. It's my earliest memories. And the publican's life is a different life. And also my father was a very colourful character as well. So there was a lot going on at the time and not really fit for having children around and things like that. So, and they were young as well. They were living their life and he was, you never know who was going to knock on the door at 5 o'clock in the morning. So and then by the time I was 7, they sent me to boarding school. So I went to boarding school when I was 7. Didn't know what I'd done to upset anyone to get sent to boarding school. But that again, I found a real peace and security with boarding school. And it's funny. Years later, when I was going through any stressful times, I'd always dream of it. Because then I suddenly realised that was the most secure I'd ever felt. Growing up. It's it was just when you're a child, it's the world you're born into. No different, and of course I didn't know half the things that were going on around me, and then all of a sudden in 1968, 69, my father was suddenly arrested and with. In a very notorious criminal case at the time with 2 very notorious criminal brothers from the East End. And then all of a sudden it all started to come to life about what kind of world I was born into. And all my friends at the boarding school were all saying, "Oh, your father's name's in the picture, in the papers, and there's pictures of him." And it wasn't really the kind of press that you wanted to be getting, So then you suddenly start to understand that, oh, hold on a minute, I come from a different kind of world. And then roll on, my father got sentenced to 10 years and then roll on towards the end of his sentence. And I was in finishing at the boarding school when I was about 14 and we were running out of money and couldn't keep me there. And my mum really struggled and she's so beautiful and wonderful and I miss her so terribly. But I had to bring up the past.
Yeah.
So, and so I came out of the boarding school and we were living in a very nice house in Dulwich, a lovely house in Dulwich, and that my father had bought before he'd gone away. And I didn't go to school for about a year. And I kept saying to my mum, I've got to go back to school because you'll get in trouble if the authorities find out and things like that. And I wouldn't want to go to a comprehensive or a local school. So I always had this fascination with, I'd done a few school plays, and I loved I realised later in life that it was the buzz with the audience and making people laugh and making people emotional was a little something that must have been somewhere inside me. And so I said to my mother, I said, you know what, I think I'd like to become an actor, try to become an actor. And my mother and I used to always watch Parkinson, which we were talking about before. And I love listening to actors talking about their life and their work and their art. And so my father by that time was in Wormwood Scrubs prison. And we went on a visit one day and I said, and my mother said, oh, Jamie's got something he wants to ask you. And I looked at my dad and he said, yeah, what's the matter? I said, I think I'd like to become an actor. And he went, all right, yeah. This is what you do. I've been told that a lot in my life. This is what you do. Go and see Barbara, go and see Ronnie Knight, who was married to Barbara Windsor at the time, who was a good friend of my father's. Go and see Barbara and ask her advice. See what if she can tell you what you're supposed to do, which was a great move. And so I went to see Barbara. I made her a meeting. She was doing a pantomime at the time, and I went over to see Barbara. And she said to me, look, the best thing to do, the best way in is through stage school. So if you go to a stage school, then you'll get an agent, and then you'll be starting to work, and you'll learn as you go along. And the schools are very good, and the best one is Italia Conti. So, okay, off we went and made an application to Italia Conti, and on the form they had a thing called a little questionnaire, and they said religion. And I put in C of E. Not that I am a very religious man, but I put in C of E, and she went, no, it's Italia Conti. She wrote, becoming RC, Roman Catholic, She said, that might do you a bit of good, And that's how much we knew about what we were doing. And I went up on the audition, and everyone's in knitted trousers and dance shoes and everything, and I went in a suit and, a pair of old trainers, walked into the room, launched into the audition, tried my best, started singing a song. Went, no, I'm not much of a singer. I'll do, and I started taking over what I was doing. Anyway, come the end of the audition, they sent me outside. I went, well, you give it your best shot. There must be another way in. I'll find another way to do this. And then they called me back in and they sat me down and they said, well, that was the worst audition we've seen in 30 years. The last person to audition that badly was Anthony Newley. You're in.
Oh, wow.
And that was it. And from then on, they sent me for a job at the National when it was at the Old Vic, when Lord Laurence Olivier was the artistic director there. And they sent me for a job, and I got the first job I ever went for, met Olivier, walking down a corridor. He stopped me and he said, how did you get on? And I went, I got the part, sir. And he went, well done, welcome to the company, and shook my hand.
What an incredible moment.
Oh.
Yeah, so much
and
reflection.
It's sort of like you look back and you go, you know what? If you didn't have some shot at a career after that being your first job you've ever gone for and meeting the greatest actor who's ever lived, Anyway. And then I did a couple of places, and then they got me into telly, sending me up for televisions, and then my face fit. I was that rough young Cockney kid, you know, who was a bit of edge, bit of James Deany kind of vibe, and I just kept getting job after job after job. So that was it. I felt like I'd made some kind of inroads. Yeah.
You know, for many of us, when you think of East End of London or the Cray Twins or anything like that, we have to watch an adaptation, a film, a TV series to kind of even get your mind in that life. But for you, it was real life for quite a big part.
I read a quote the other day in the paper, I think in one of the Times or something, and there was someone was being interviewed, and I think it was Eddie Marzan, and he said, gangster films are a fantasy of middle class people. And that's really true, because the reality of the people that in that world, and having been born into that world and knowing everyone in that world, it's not glamorous. You know, these are dangerous, dark men. You know, my father was a very, very, you know, he's still alive, but he was a very, very dangerous man. You know, and there's two ways of looking at you know, cinematically you want to make them kind of engageable, if that's a word, but in real life these people are dark characters, a lot of them, you know.
Well, because I mean, for those who don't know who are watching, your dad is called Freddie Foreman.
Yeah.
Very notorious London gangster, the word, and he had a nickname, Brown Bread Fred, as well. You know,
I think the clue's in that.
Yeah. So, did you ever meet, or were you ever around the Cray twins?
Oh yeah.
What were they like with you?
Oh, you know, they were lovely with me. Charlie, the oldest brother, Charlie Cray was a lovely man, and you know, burdened with these two unpredictable brothers, you know, twin brothers. But they were fine, and I used to, when they were in prison, they'd phone me up and speak to me on the phone and send me letters and things. And I actually read the eulogy at Charlie's funeral when he passed away, and I was very honoured to do so, because he was a lovely man, you know. And I used to say, I said, how's the brothers? He goes, oh, don't, you know. And so it was. My godfather was Buster Edwards, who was one of the great train robbers. He was my Buster and June. They were my godparents, and we're very close. And I read the eulogy at his funeral as well. So, not pleasant things to do. Told a lovely little anecdote about when they bought me a train for Christmas, and they was sitting playing with it, him and my father, and he broke it. But I think he always had a penchant for trains, so, which went down well with the congregation. But then you know, when I was younger, I suppose I looked a lot of it through rose-coloured glasses. These were my family. These were the people I was loyal to and loved and have very fond memories of. But they were of a different ilk. You know, they were criminals, and when you grow older, you learn to look at things from a different perspective. But you know, also when you're an actor, you use what you've got, and you look back on the people, you know, on the people that you've known all these years, and you try to bring a little element of each of them into your performance. And if you know, and I've played a lot of gangsters in my time. And I've always tried to find a different angle to them and introduce little quirky things that they used to do. And, you know, in Gangster Number One, an uncle of mine used to have this thing, you know, and I put that into the film, and little elements of different characters and different people I'd come across and met. And they were a great source of material, you know, in certain ways. But the reality of coming from that world is, you know, when your father's in prison for a very long time and your mother's struggling, and there's just you and your sister and your brother, and they're hard. It's hard on families. They're hard times on families, and we suffered from that. And you know, And then he came out from prison and started all over again. So that's all another story. But yeah. So that's I hope that helps. You understand where I come from and what my life was like.
Well, yesterday you shared a story which I'd love to talk about, because you and your wife Julie, you have the most amazing relationship. When you see two people that just have such a pure love, and it just little things that you do. So how did you meet? And if you don't mind sharing that story.
Well, I can't tell you. I always give you the truncated story, which I get in terrible trouble for, because it's a lovely, wonderful story. We knew each other back in the 70s, 80s. My darling was a really successful model, and she used to do all the big major TV campaigns, and she was the big milk campaign they did called the Lot of Bowl. Milk has got a lot of bowl. She was the Lot of Bowl girl. There was Britvic orange juice and Peter Stuyvesant's cigarettes, and going all over the world. And we all came from the same area, all knew the same people. And we were sort of set apart because I was cracking away with the TV work and everyone. And it was quite lovely, because everyone was really proud that we'd broken away from the norm. We're not following like in a criminal way or going, whatever it was, and what everyone else was trapped in the world that they were in. And we were like living proof that you could get away from it and you could make it in a bigger world. So when we first met, I always remember I was standing in the Southwark Park Tavern public house on a Saturday night, and the doors open, and this vision walked through the door, and my jaw hit my chest, and I think, oh, I'm going to have that one day. That's for me. And unfortunately, at the time, she was seeing somebody who I actually was friends with. And so I bided my time, but we had a connection straight away because we had shared interests. We had things. She was off modelling and doing different things and castings and TV commercials, and I'm doing the acting and doing dramas and series on the TV. So we'd have a banter. We understood each other, whereas no one else really did. So we'd be in a corner, really talking about everything and what you're doing and what you got coming up next And anyway, roll on about a year later, she was suddenly available, and the other boyfriend got the tin tack, and I pounced. And then, unfortunately, what happened is we went out on a date, and she was only about 17 at the time, I think. And then we went out on a couple of dates, and our song was "Gone, Gone, Gone" by Johnny Mathis. That was the first one we danced to. They're very emotional, these things, aren't they? When you start to bringing back memories. But then, lo and behold, my father was involved in another big kind of drama and big criminal enterprise, and it went a bit pear-shaped, and then my name was associated with certain elements of it and the police and different things. And so I disappeared from the country. I just had to, I upped and just went, because it was either that or get, be implicated in something that I really had nothing to do with. And I disappeared for about 2 years and lived in America and lived in Spain and lived in America, and we lost contact, obviously, and we hadn't seen each other for about 20 years, and I was single at the time, and I'm staying with a friend of mine who lives over in Finchley Road, and I'm looking over his shoulder one day, and he's reading the paper, and there's a little picture, like, and he turned the page. I said, turn that page back a minute. I said, that's Julie Dennis. And I hadn't seen her in a good 20 years. And I went, that's Julie Dennis. Now, good sort she was. I said, there was a story. Now, what happened? She slipped the net somehow, and I can't remember how, so many years later. And I was doing a big series for ITV, and my sister was working as my PA at the time, and for me, and I said to her, I said, I saw a picture of Julie Dennis in the paper the other day. I said, if you hear anything of her, find out, go to work, Dan, and find out if she's with anyone or anything. I'd love to hook up with her again. Anyway, my son sent my sister off on a mission. Meantime, my darling is at home one day, and she was friends with a girl who, at the local gym that they go to, the local, I think David Lloyd or something, one of those things. And the girl stopped around at my darling's house and was saying, "Oh, I'm going out with a friend tonight, and I can't get her on the phone. She's murder, and my battery's gone down. So can I text her your number here, and then see if you know?" So anyway, text the number. Then they're sitting there having a chat. The phone rings. My darling answers the phone. She went, "Oh, it's for you." And then all of a sudden, the girl who's got the phone is screaming, going, "Oh my God! No, why are you screaming? Why are you screaming?" My sister's screaming that I've said this a bit wrong, haven't I? But that's why I always tell the short version. The girls who she's talking to on the phone start screaming, and then the girl in my darling's flat turned around and said, "Why are you screaming? I can't understand why you. What's the matter with you? Slow down." She said, "Is that the Julie Dennis? It's my sister who's phoned the flat."
That's incredible.
And that's the girl she was going out with that night. And I know you've heard that story so much better yesterday than I just told it now. Because I always get to that last bit, and because it wasn't my side of the story. It was always my darling's side of the story. So anyway, my sister phoned me. She went, I've tracked her down. I've got you her number, you know. And then I phoned her up just before Christmas. I phoned her up on the Boxing Day, and we were on the phone for 3 or 4 hours, you know, just talking, reminiscing. It was like we'd spoke to each other the day before. And that was it. And I said to her, I said, "So when we going out?" And she said, "Oh, I know you're busy." And, I went, no, I wasn't going when we going out. I said, "When are we going out? Come on, like, you know, when can we go for dinner? I have to see you." And then we went out on the 5th of January. We let the Christmas get out of the way and the New Year. And then on the 5th of January, we went out. We've been together for 24 years since.
Amazing.
And I've never been happier in my life. And she saved my life, literally, and in more ways than one.
Well, we're going to get the uncut version from you next year. Because it's such.
And she tells it much better than I do. I get too emotional when I tell it.
But I kind of want to cut back because before that, obviously, you'd met and essentially fell in love, but then you were forced to leave. So you're in a situation where it's like my family or my future love. Go back to that moment when you made the decision that you had to, go on a run, I'm assuming.
Well, you're kind of told.
Okay, your family?
Your cards marked, with the people around my family. And then the police let you, in subtle ways, let you know in no uncertain terms that, well, you'll do, my father had already gone.
Okay.
Had already fled. And then, so now they're trying to find him and trying to get him. So I was a target to be able to drag him back, And we got this and we got that. And anyway, it's all a long time ago, and it's all a lot of water under the bridge since then.
What did you do for work? So when did you just get like a regular job when you were in America?
Well, when we were in America, we had contacts over there, and they helped us out when we first started, and we had to sell that beautiful house in Dulwich and different things and wait for the money. And we built a house in America. My father built a house in America, and we were in the vending business, which basically means like arcades, pinball machines, nice. Pool tables. But then though, it was all the new games that no one had seen, like Asteroids and Pac-Man and all these things, and we had all these machines in this big place, and it was in the downtown area, so it was a bit hairy, You know,
Yeah.
and with two white guys, and you know, sometimes we stood in there. We were the only two white guys in the whole place. You know, so.
It's amazing though. I love that you went on to do something different, because you could have easily, that could have become your life, you know, it did for many people. And you've gone on to be in the most incredible TV series and films. And I want to talk, we got loads to talk about. I mean, EastEnders, Layer Cake, I watched it the first time last night and that was just insane. But when did you get your first television break?
Television break? No, I can't remember. I did what's it? I would imagine that I was going up for lots of them, you know, like you know, when you came in from school, there'd be a little TV series that was about kids of your own age and things like that. And I was 15, I was about 16 when I started really getting my foot in the door. And it was ATV was the big company at the time. It was there was Thames, there was London Weekend. And being a good South London boy, and London Weekend was based at Waterloo, I kind of felt at home there. And I did a lot of work at London Weekend. And then certain producers took a shine to me. Paul Knight, who was a great producer, he did all of London's Burning, Robin of Sherwood Forest and all them things he did. And I did a lot of work with Paul. And he was very influential in my early career. And he was a nice man. He was a good man. And then I did worked at ATV a lot. And there was a fantastic director called John Sickle who taught me a hell of a lot. And we used to row and argue all the time. And, you know, he was a big man as well. And I even offered him outside the studio one day. I said, come outside, you. I said, and but he got the best out of me. He would make me understand what discipline the business demands, you know, and when you're acting, when you're young, how to do phone calls. I mean, you don't realise how difficult it is when you get your first phone call on camera, you know, because you don't know, because no one's talking, but you got to make out that you're hearing someone talking. Do you know what I mean? It's like all the little things that, and he was really patient with me and shout and scream at me, but he was also patient with me. And I did about 3 series with him up, and then did some TV work. And he did a big series at the Beeb, and I went and worked with him at the Beeb. And so there was certain people who took me under their wing, so to speak. And then I was but I'd do anything that they threw at me, you know. And I did like a Saturday morning chat show, like we're called our show, and it was all kids, and it was like Little Susan Tully. One of the Fletcher brothers, you know, Graham Fletcher was on that, and myself, and they said that they made it look like they just dragged us off the street. So when I've been doing like a regular series, 2 series. I used to, at one point I had 2 series going out in the same week. I had one on a Sunday afternoon for Harlech Television, which was down in Bristol, and I had another series going out for ATV and on the Wednesday. So I was like hot, you know. Yeah. I was all over the place. And you get them little girls' magazines, and I always remember I was called a page 4 core. And I went to this, and I'd go to schools to meet, you know, to get invited to come down in schools and get mobbed, literally mobbed like a pop star, you know. So I suddenly realised that I was making a dent here, you know. And then, of course, other things in life overtake you, and then you have to have a break. But I'd put enough work in when I was younger to sort of secure a footing. Yeah. And then I suddenly and I was still with the Italia and I was doing some lunchtime theatres with some really good people down in Croydon. And I was learning my game and learning the ropes, and there was wonderful actors I was wearing, Peter White and different people like that, and two very influential directors down there, who subsequently would become very good television directors and film directors, and got me a lot of what gave me. But used to call me up and bring me in. But I used to I was doing these lunchtime theatres and really learning the ropes, and then I got to play at the Royal Court. Upstairs at the Royal Court, So I was doing one in the lunch time and then doing one at the Royal Court in the evening. And that was a who's who of like Alfred Molina, Carl Johnson, you know, I mean, some really, Ian Redford, really top, that bit older than me, but really great actors, really all the young guns at the time. And they came to see me in the play at Croydon, and they brought they bring their agents to see me. And I was still under Italia Conti at the time, and I knew it was time for me to move on because I'd left the school by then. And I was sitting having a conversation with this lovely man called Bill Horn in the pub afterwards, didn't know who he was at the time. And I was going, oh, don't know. He said, who's your agent? Who represents you? I said, oh, don't talk to me about agents. I said, I had 3 agents and they all found out that they were all after me and all pulled away. I said, so I've ended up with nobody. I'm still with Italia. He went, well, I'm an agent. I went, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it personally. And he took me under his wing, and his partner, Greville, said to me, brought me in the office one day, and he went, right, no more telly for you. You got to go and learn the ropes. You got to go and learn your game. And which was a financial blow, because you got 20 quid a week at theatre, in lunchtime theatres and fringe theatres. And I did all the fringes all over London, did play after play after play, and I really felt like I learned something invaluable, you know, how to think on your feet, how to react to audiences, how to react to situations. And acting is reacting. It isn't just standing there and having a line in your head and you know how you're going to say it. It's the way the other person says the first line to you, you know, which is a fault with a lot of actors that I work with subsequently. But and then I suddenly started doing all the theatres and got all that under my belt, and then I went, can I start earning some money again now? Because I'm really getting skint. You know, I said, I've got to go back out there in front of the camera. He went, no, you don't. I did about a year, 14 months, 15 months of just these little plays in getting dressed in the toilet and things like that, you know. But working with some really good people, doing some really good material, and building a little bit of a reputation for myself. And I was doing a play over at the I worked at the Theatre Royal Stratford East. I did some lovely two lovely plays there. We did one, and that went down really big. And I used to look out in the audience, and it'd be all my contemporaries, all my peer group, would all be out sitting in the audience, and come to see this for, you know. And I thought, you know, and then years later, I was working with an actor, and we were out in Tunisia, I think, and we were walking down the beach one day, and I said, he went, yeah, because we always used to see, you know, keep our eye on what you were up to. I said, what do you mean? He went, well, the word would go out, oh, Foreman's doing a play. We got to go and see what he's doing, what he's up to, you know. Yeah. So that's that kind of camaraderie that you have in the business, and you pick up off of each other, and you support each other, you know. And I don't know if it's so much like that today, but it's very competitive today. Whereas we used to sort of bond, and we'd see each other out, and oh, hello, mate, what are you doing? And what you got on going at the moment, and talk about acting and things like that. So, you know, it gets in your blood. And that's your world. But then I'm always constantly fighting that battle of being pulled away from it. Yeah. Through family, you know. But I because of my beautiful darling, and came to the end of, and I suddenly realised, and a couple of people who I really respected and had known all my life, said, you got to get away from all this. Every time I see you on an interview, you're being asked these different questions. I'm talking to you honestly about it. Well, we've had this conversation before, and it made me not want to be so in the public eye, and it just wore me down, because I'd have to fend it off all the time, and I have to always be constantly saying, you know, oh yeah, look, you know, I was on Terry Wogan. I'm being interviewed by Terry Wogan, and he was the loveliest man, and I know you know this, but he was the most beautiful man, and really so attentive. Never had anything with him. He'd just sit there and he'd just look at you and watch you. And now I'm sitting doing this interview, and I could suddenly feel the audience going a bit, something, there was a crack, it was just something not right, and something was a bit different. And the researchers had said to me, all about the things we're discussing now. And I went, no, I don't want to talk about all that. Please don't bring all that up. I'm here to promote I've got this lovely series I'm doing for ITV, and I really want to talk about that. And then all of a sudden, they had a screen like this up behind me on the wall, and I'm talking to Terry Wogan, and I suddenly went, oh, I don't like that. And I've just got this thing, and I look round, and there's a picture of the Craig twins on the wall. And I thought, again, I'm never going to get away from this. Why? I was a little boy when these men were, and they're all dead now. You're talking about 35, 40 years ago. What's it got to do with me, so to speak? And especially when you're doing wonderful work with wonderful people and you're trying to promote it, and the producers are all getting you, you're going on Wogan, that's fantastic. Can you say this and can you say... And then you're getting all that nonsense. And but I went, oh, look, there's Uncle Ron and Uncle Reg, like that. And Terry Wogan did burst out laughing. And I learned how to deflect it and spin it away on this morning. People sitting there having their cup of coffee in the morning and they're asking me these questions. But... yeah. And so it's been a constant battle. And then when my darling came back into my life, and I was reaching the end of my tether with it, because I felt like it was affecting me, and negatively. And also in this day and age, I mean, you can't cough without somebody writing about you and cancelling you and doing these things. When you come from a background like me, it would be very easy for people to turn around and say, well, why are you allowing this man to go on television? His father was this, that and the other. The fact that I'm not has nothing to do with it. It's a different world we live in today. So I made a conscious decision to pull back and not do any interviews and keep my head down. And I'd written a book, and admittedly, and that was a sort of love letter to all of my childhood and different things, and all my lovely aunties and my family, and then after that book, I had a falling out with my father. I had terrible words with him, and I haven't spoken to him for 10 years, and I'm quite happy not to, and I'm quite happy with the way that my life is now. I'm at peace, and I'm back working again. The phone's ringing all the time, and it's starting to feel, because I'm coming back into the work, doing it under my own terms now, which is really nice. But it's the body of work that we should be talking about, and not all that nonsense. But the body of work is actually what sustained me through my life. And somebody said to me years ago, you never leave the business leaves you. But it hasn't yet, and it always keeps pulling me back in, and keeping, another offer will come through, and another. I'm now working on this wonderful franchise, the Rise of the Foot Soldiers, which we're getting stronger and stronger every year. I've done 3 so far. I'm doing another one. I'm doing the next one as well.
Sure. I get the sense with Julie, for instance, that in your early career, you would go off and do something amazing, but you'd get pulled back, into that family life. But Julie kind of cut that from pulling you back, and now you've just got the freedom to do it on your terms, and do what you've always loved.
And the cutting the connections off. I had to do it for my own peace of mind and my own. It was just wearing me down, and it was making me ill. And I've lived a duality, because again, the world I was born into, you can't talk about. It's people's liberties. They could be, things about them that could get them arrested tomorrow. So you keep your mouth shut about everything. You don't know nothing. And there I am at the same time. I'm out there giving it all of this, and trying to build a career as an actor and being in the public eye. But the other side of me lives in a dark, shadowy underworld, So it was, which is fascinating and enriching in a lot of ways. But there was a time to cut off and go, look, I am not part of that. That is not me. I was born into it. I'm I may have done a few naughty things in my time, but this is my career should come first, and my well-being should come first, and my love for my darling is, everything to me. So it gave me the opportunity to sort of step back. Yeah.
Well, we spoke briefly yesterday in a car that a couple of years ago I did a reunion of the show, The House of Elliot.
Oh my God!
And of course, you were
yeah.
on that. You did a whole series, 6 episodes. So, do you have any memories from working on the show? Because it was kind of at the time a very good period drama. It was like family viewing. Do you have any special memories from working on the show?
Oh, there was some lovely people. We had It was very set. It was one of those shows that it was literally upstairs, downstairs. And there was the group of us that were all the actors, that were the downstairs people who worked for them. And then there was all the posh lot, So, and when we go for lunch, I can say it now, but when we go for lunch, we'd all be, we'd do a producer's run on I think I can't remember how many episodes I did, 4 or 5, 6. Oh God, yeah, that was a good little run. We'd have a producer's run, and then we'd break for lunch. And we'd all go up to this was the BBC had we used to call it the Acton Hilton. It was a big sort of tower block full of rehearsal rooms that everyone doing anything at the Beeb you have to go. It was right over in Acton. It was a nightmare to get to. And it was, but on the roof they had a restaurant and a clubhouse and a terrace. And we'd all go up and sit up on the terrace and go, I bet I'll get a note. I bet it's us, because the posh ones never get a note, and it would happen, and we'd all get back in, and they go, we'd like to just keep Jamie back, and we'd all look at each other and laugh. But it was one of the, I think it really worked for the series, because it was a huge series. It was a smash hit, wasn't it? Sold all over the world. And the girls were really, the upstairs people never really used to mix with us in the rehearsal rooms. They'd all sort of congregate in the corner, and I thought, God, this is like, the television programme's repeating itself in the rehearsal room, for God's sake.
Vicky Alcock, of course.
Vicky Alcock, lovely Vicky, yeah. We're good friends
happen.
with Vicky. We know her. I've done a few little bits and pieces for her, charity things that she's done, and she started up a lovely little acting thing for young people. So she's putting it back, and she's still working and cracking away. And some good people on that. Judy Flynn, people would know her from the British Empire. She was in it. She played my wife in it. Yeah, it was, and Stephen Churchitt. Yeah. He wrote all of the Agatha Christie's. He played like the I don't want to say the foreman. He ran the sort of workshop downstairs, and he was quite posh, but he was a working class man who thought he was quite posh. And he wrote all the scripts for all the Agatha Christie's. He's an expert on it. He always plays the coroner. Yeah, you'll always see him. He plays the coroner no matter where in the country that it's shot. He's the coroner. On
the reunion we had, I can't remember his name. He played the heartthrob in the show.
Oh yeah, Aidan.
Yes,
Aidan Gillett.
Yeah,
Aidan Gillett. I think it was. Yeah. Good looking, big strapping fella. Yeah, he was sweet. He was nice, man. He's a nice guy. But everyone was nice. It was just that it kind of like I suppose it would have been the same in the actual upstairs, downstairs. The posh, all the posh actors, but then they had Gordon Jackson and people like that. So maybe not.
I mentioned earlier Layer Cake. First time I had ever seen the film. Loved it, right up my street.
Yeah.
But you look at the cast. I mean, Daniel Craig, Sienna Miller, Tom Hardy, Michael Gambon, yourself.
Yeah.
How did that opportunity? Were you approached and said, "Look, this"? How did it come about for you?
Oh, Matthew Vaughan phoned me up. I was going to do. I think I was going to do Mean Machine. I was going to do something when they did the remake of Mean Machine, and I kind of like pulled myself away from it, and it didn't quite work out. I went off and did something else. Anyway, I got a phone call one day and said, Matthew Vaughan wants to see you. They're putting a film together. So I went over and met him. And we're sitting there just having a chat like we are now. And he said, got this part in the film. He said, we don't really know what to do with it. It's a bit kind of like complicated. And he's I said, well, give me the scripts and I'll see if I think I can do something with it. I'll get back to you and let you know. Anyway, I took the script away and God, I was reading it and it took me hours to read it because I'm thinking, well, as a thriller, if I'm trying to go like, well, I thought he was dead. No, and now he's come back again. And why is that? Why is he trying to do, all those elements and the different layers and literally the different layers of the film were so intricate and so fascinating. And I thought, well, if I'm enjoying reading it, and it took me 4 hours to read a 2-hour script, an hour and 50-minute script, then the audience are going to like this. Right, so now stripped back again, went back through the character again. And I knew a lot of the Deptford boys, like the boys who were over in Spain. I'd lived in Spain for a while, another story. And I'd met all the boys that had come over there who were doing the runs across with the drugs across the Med from North Africa and things. And they were all totally bananas, all nuts, being chased, being machine gunned at by the patrols and that. And I went, well, I've got to play them. I've got to play one of them. So I kind of thought of the character and I went back to him. I went, and then I actually hit on something as well, that the character I played, Duke, was the antithesis of Daniel's character. He was everything that Daniel didn't want to become.
Yeah.
He was desperately trying to get away from this world. And again, I kind of clocked it because I'm in the same boat. He's trying to get away from the world and doesn't want to be classed as a drug dealer. My guy just wants to be a drug dealer. And he's everything that Daniel's trying not to be in the film. So there's a kind of like symbiotic kind of relationship between Daniel's ex and the Duke. And I kind of fell on this and I thought, this is really interesting and this is really fascinating. So I go back and see Matthew and I went, oh, I've got it. I know exactly what I'd do with it. And this is why. And I explained it all to him. And he went, oh, my God. He said, we never saw that. And I, oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. You're right. Yeah. And so we had a really lovely conversation. And I went off on a costume fitting. And I had a little cheese cutter cap that I bought in Zara for about 12 quid or something, And I started with that, and then I put the trackie on and the kind of feeler and the white and everything sort of came together. And then the character just went, this is this nutty little Deptford boy who's like, who fancies himself as a proper main player, And of course, in the film, he comes unstuck, as he should. And I sold that cap for £800 at a charity auction one night.
Wow, I bet the person who's got it was
and had
happy.
it framed on, signed it, and then the guy framed it and put it on in his house on the wall in his den. Yeah. But the film itself, I think, is an amazing film, and Daniel was wonderful in it. And I've got one quick one. We get called over to rehearse on a Sunday morning because everyone's flying in from different places. And my darling was amazing because I was doing another film at the same time, and they were going, "Oh, can you come back?" And he said, "Well, I can't get him back now because he's out." And she's liaised through everything with my agent, and the production, the two different production companies, and she was incredible at that, But when we go in on a Sunday morning to rehearse, and Cole Meany, his lovely Cole Meany, he's come flying in, and we're all in this room over in Lancaster Gate, somewhere over there. And we're sitting in there, it's me and Daniel. And Daniel and I had known each other anyway, but Daniel had we'd worked on Elizabeth together. He played the mad, murderous monk, and I played the Earl of Sussex. And so we sort of had a background. And we were sitting there, and so Daniel's on one side of the table, I'm on the other. And Matthew's trying to get this. And I knew I had ideas about how I was going to play this scene, because there's a couple of good one-liners in it, and I didn't want to lose them. I wanted to really get them right. And the aspirin line, you're giving aspirin and headache and all that. So, and I'm sitting there, and then also Matthew's going, well, I think he could be, and he doesn't know what I'm going to do, and I'm not giving anything away. And then all of a sudden I thought, oh God, this is really getting boring now because we're gonna be here. It's Sunday afternoon. My darling's cooking lunch, and I'm gonna be here for hours, and he's gonna keep edging me till I get it out. He gets it out of me, so I let rip with it, and I did the Duke. Harry's sort of near enough, not all totally, but Harry's sort of near enough finished in the film. And I mate, what the, and I went, and Cole Meany had just walked in the room, and he suddenly looked and thought, who the this? And Daniel was sitting there, I love Daniel, and Daniel was sitting there, and he's just, and when it stopped, the whole room just went quiet. Matthew Vaughan's gone, is like looking at me like, my God, what, oh. And then I looked at Daniel, and Daniel's, I can see him laughing. And I went, a little bit like that, I thought I'd do it, Matthew. And he went, okay. He went, and then Daniel cracked up, and I went, something like that, I went, And then, but then he was a great character to play because there was no end to him. You could go where you wanted with him. And lovely Sally Hawkins came in.
Yeah.
We did the screen. I flew back in and to do the screen test for her role. And I was already cast, and they brought in about 3 girls, all very good, And then, because the whole scene is, I said, stand behind me, because the whole scene is like her behind me, and giving it them out. And this little timid little, sort of bit frou-frou-y, a little flowery little shirt on and coming. And as I'm rehearsing, I'm going, this is all, I'm all right, I'm cast, I'm doing it, but this is all about you. You do, you take your moment, Anything you want me to help you with, what to do. And so I'm sitting there and I'm saying the lines across and the camera's pointing this way. And all of a sudden, I've heard this lunatic behind me. And when the way she did it, and this timid little girl, I went, who's this? Who's just walked in? I thought it was kicking off behind me. And she was amazing in it. She was incredible in it. Because she's so unlike what she's like in real life, Incredible, yeah. So Ken Cranham also, Ken Cranham in the film.
Good cast.
Oh, amazing. Cast. Uncle Ken, because Ken's an old friend of mine, yeah.
Do you know what's amazing with these interviews is obviously we all know you as an actor, but the work that you put into this is not something that you just kind of did a couple of auditions and then you've really put the graft to understand the art of performing and connecting with an audience. And that's just the amazing to hear that.
Well, it's truth, isn't it? It's about, when you go to see if you walk into a darkened room, into a big auditorium and a darkened room, and there's a screen that's 40 by 60 foot up there, and you're looking into someone's eyes, if they don't believe it, you'll know that. You'll see it. It hides nothing. You can't hide with a movie camera, and that's the work I love doing the most. It's like I'd made a conscious decision. I was doing a lot of telly and a lot of different things and the bits and pieces, and I went, you know what? The one thing that really makes me the happiest is when I'm on a film set and when I'm working with a camera, and just the isolation of this huge concern behind the scenes. But then there's just that camera, a director, a good bit of writing in your hands, and me and another actor just looking at each other and having a conversation and talking and building and creating something wonderful and something enthralling and putting the plot across and getting little moments and all that kind of technicality of it, of how you look and where you look and using the light. There's 50, 60 people behind that camera all want to make you look good. And I hate actors that go in and go, I was talking to the DOP, he's driving me mad. He keeps wanting me to stand there. I go, well, where was the light? You're walking out your light. You're obviously, And when you walk onto a set and you get one of the top boys come up to you and say, just watching what you were doing there, Jamie, would you mind just doing that again for me? And it's nothing's happening. You're in a break. They're resetting, and you go over and you do the action again. And he talks on his little microphone. And some 3 big burly sparks come running in and set up lights and put it out and angling it and go, you're going to hit that mark, come hell or high water. Nothing's going to stop you because he's just lit you to make you look fantastic, because he knows you appreciate what he's doing.
Mm.
And you're trying to make his work look good, and you're all trying to make it all look the best it can possibly look. And there's certain directors, I fear that through the pressures of time and money, recently I've found, I'm sure on when they've got all the time and the money in the world, they rush all this now. I suddenly went through a period of working and thinking, do you know what? It ain't about the work. It's not about making it look fantastic. It's about just getting it in the camera and getting it quick and getting it on time and moving on as quickly as you can. Directors coming in and saying, stand there, stand over there. You come in and you stand there and then you walk over and go, whoa, 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 whoa. What happened to blocking? What happened to creating something in front of the camera and taking the time? And then when you work with the really, really top guys, the Roman Polanskis of this world, the Gary Oldmans of this world when he was directing, Mike Hodges of this world, you walk on set and they look round at you and they go, so what do you want to do? And you all look at each other and you go, well, I don't know, right, let's do a little line run and we'll see where it goes. And then we'll all do a little line run and then the director will say, oh, that's really nice. The cameraman's watching, and you create something wonderful in front of it. And that's when you're watching proper movies and proper people working. And then that filters through the screen at the audience. When it's rushed and hurried and banged out and you know what's going to happen next, there's nothing in that for me. That's not what I was educated into and what the world I lived through and how I was taught by the best people in the business. So it made me want to pull back for quite a while, which I did, and I sort of said, like, I've had enough of it now, and I kind of feel like I want to sort of retire. And I've done nearly 55 years in the business. I've walked up all the red carpets. I've done all these big films. I've done, certain things I haven't done, but you can't win everything. And then I started to pull back a little bit, but then again, it dragged me back in, thankfully.
Well, I was going to say 55 years. If we were to cover everything, this would be a 3-day interview because you have done so much. But I wanted to talk about what a lot of people know you for, which is, of course, I think iconic Derek Branning in EastEnders. And to have someone of your status, as an actor, to be in EastEnders was incredible because you just played the character so well. Yeah. And you told me an amazing story yesterday with your first scene with Pam St. Clement.
Yeah.
And I never thought about the way that you said it, that she actually, for the first time ever, was running away from the man. She didn't give that, she had a bit of gumption normally.
Yeah. No, she was amazing. Yeah, she's lovely. And I'll be a little bit controversial here because I don't see EastEnders as anywhere near the highlight of my career. I mean, it was another job. And I know how iconic it is for people out there, and I respect it, and I respect everything as an institution and what it represents, especially for the BBC. But for me, it was just another little... I was doing a film they'd asked me so many times before, and I was doing a film over in Germany. I was sitting in Alexanderplatz, and the phone rings, and the agent phones me up again. He said, EastEnders on the phone again. And Julia, the casting director, said, "This is a character. They're not going to look at anyone else until you say yes or no, And I went, oh, okay, right. So they said it's with the best family. It's a full on. You do as long as you want. Anything over 6 months, we'd be glad to have you." And that, so I said, "Oh, I only want to do a year because I know how hard work it was, and it could burn people out. And also, you can get trapped, when you've got all this other work behind you." And I know a lot of mates of mine went, "What are you doing that for? It's not, you're one of us. You're a film actor, and you're this." but it just floated my boat at the time, and I went and met with them, and they made me all manner of promises they never kept. Like you only work. You never work on a Saturday. I did every Saturday for a year. I did 182 episodes in a year, which has got to be 182, 184. I was like the first in, last out every day. Start at 8 o'clock, so I was leaving home at 6 o'clock every morning, getting home at 8 o'clock, half 8, 9 o'clock at night, driving myself in and out, stacks of scripts like that, which was all very good. Anyone who says doing a soap and that, it's the hardest work I've ever done. I do a page a day on a film. We all go to the bar afterwards. I'm doing 30. I did 36 scenes in a day one day. Things like that, and all my work. Because it's me, all my scenes are all. Like I don't stop talking all the way through, like I've done with this interview. But so I really burnt me out big time. And I'm really thankful for the experience and the opportunity to see what it's about. But I would never call it one of my highlights of my career. But far from it.
What if I was to say to you now, what is your career highlight so far? What would you say?
There's a handful of films that I think, Layer Cake being one of them. And the feedback I get from that film alone is quite phenomenal. People who've seen it so many times and watch it every time it's on. I did a film. I worked with a wonderful director, the late great Mike Hodges, who did Get Carter, and they'd written a film. He worked in his writer. They'd written the role specifically for me, and so I'd done. I've never told this story but I think it's quite a fascinating story. I went for a screen test in about the April of one year, and I'm doing this little screen test and this scene and that, and I'm banging out. And so I do the screen test and I forget all about it, And I said to my agent, I said, "Oh, that was fun. I enjoyed that today. I had a nice little feel for that today. This little test I did." I said, "Keep me posted on what's happening with it." She said, "Oh, yeah, okay, we'll let you know straight away." And I go off and I don't hear nothing for months and months. And all of a sudden, a couple of other projects come in, I bang a few little things out. And then all of a sudden, I've been working on developing a TV series for the networks. And I was sort of like an advisory capacity on the script, and it was like a crime-based thing. And the producer is a very, 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 very dear friend of mine, Tim Vaughan. And we get the green light for this TV series, big 6-part TV series. Oh, what a result! It's really good. At the same time, that fits in with it all. I get a phone call to go over and meet Mike Hodges. So I go to meet Mike Hodges, and this man's an icon in our business, one of the great British directors. And I'm sitting there with him, and he's going, "Oh, I'm so pleased to meet," and like he's really like making me feel. And I'm looking at him, going, "No, you're the great director." I said, "I'm so thrilled to be working here with you." Trevor's Preston, a great writer, has written this part with you in mind. This, that, and the other, and I'm sitting there. Well, this is somebody I've always wanted to work with, so I'll go, yes, I'll do this film. So I've got the TV series and a film with Mike Hodges, brilliant, which is a great film. I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, with Clive Owen and all different people in that, Malcolm McDowell. The screen test I've done 6 months before, suddenly I get a phone call from my agent. "That screen test you did," I said, "What, that pirate thing?" Yeah, he said, "Yeah." They said, "They want you for the film. They want you to do it." I said, "Well, I can't do it." I said, "They should have been on the phone before this." I've just said yes, and I've got the TV thing off the ground. And they went, no, you don't understand. They've gone ballistic. They really want you to come and do this. Anything, can we move the dates? And I said, I don't. How can I say that to the networks and say this to Mike Hodges? And they've got to talk to Mike. And they've got to pay him a hell of a lot of money if they wanted him to sort of put his dates back and to get me on. What is it anyway? It was Pirates of the Caribbean.
No way.
Yeah. And so I missed my chance. Yeah,
Wow.
free film. And then, you know what I said to myself afterwards? I went, since when has a pirate film made any money? They've all been flops. They've all sunk to the bottom of the ocean like the Davy Jones locker, you know. It's like Polanski tried one. Cutthroat Island, they all come and they all get panned in the how many films? 5 films later. I could have been on board. Going all over, filming in the Caribbean. But that's life, see? Life.
So
what that could have interfered with in my life and where I was in that period of my life and what it led to, you know. Incredible. I'm sure my darling would have loved it. Swanning around the Caribbean for 3 or 4 years, you know. Yeah.
What you said there was multiple. What else is a highlight for you?
Well, Nil by Mouth.
Yeah.
By Nil by Mouth. What a film, yeah. What an unbelievable experience, and learned so much on it, and was given the trust and the respect to really, and it was a bugger of a film to do because we didn't know. I don't think Gary he knew what he wanted to do, but he didn't know how to express himself as being a director for the first time. As an actor, I mean, God, name me one better, you know, in the world today, and for a very long time. But when it comes to directing, we were shooting on one camera, and we were doing multiple big dialogue scenes. We were trying scenes, and then we were going. And I remember I had a scene in it where I'll give a big speech at the beginning. It wasn't on paper. It looks like a big 3-4 pages of dialogue, you know, telling a story in a pub in a club in New Cross. And lay it down, and then we go round the thing and all this. And I remember going in and filming this scene, and I got the crew are all laughing, and everyone's cracking away, and I thought, and I went home I finished that night, and me and Ray Winston, and me and Ray sitting up, this is going to be amazing. This film, I felt so good. I've never felt like that in front of a camera before, and Gary come up to me next morning and went, I've been watching the Russes last night. He said, all that yesterday, I want to do it again. And I went, all right. So anything in particular that you didn't like? No, I loved all of it. But that was the point. I loved it too much. It was too funny. I think it could be that, but something else, you know. And so we go back the next day. Here we go. Right, and what am I going to do with it now? But I know what he means. And that's how we shot the whole movie. And then I'm doing the scene, and I get right, and it's indescribable, that feeling that you get when you're doing a big piece of dialogue, and you're everyone's with you. All the other actors are all like hanging on your word, and you're all, you know, and it's flowing and it's wonderful and it's lovely, and I'm just coming and I can see the finishing line ahead of me, and I'm going, I can't. And an extra just walked past the back of the chair and hit the back of the chair really hard, and I've stopped. I went, Dave, and I won't say what I said to him. I think. And then Ray's looking at him like that, growling at him. And where does he think he is? Anyway, what was I saying? And I went, and I carried on. Whoa. The best thing I've ever done.
Wow.
Yeah.
Proudest work.
Oh, sorry to keep getting emotional.
No, that's reflecting.
It's the medication. That's all it is. But It was the best moment and the best thing. And I went, "You'll never have to give me another note in this film," and he never did. And we went back and we'd already shot stacks of it, and then we went, "No, we're finding it now. Now it's coming." It was like a Cassavetes movie. It was like great cinema that you never. And the technical ability of all the actors involved was unsurpassable. When we were doing scenes in a room, we had one camera. There'd be 5, 6 people in the room. 3 days to shoot that one scene. I'd do another story, another anecdote I'd tell in the film, and I'm doing this story. But now we've got to go around each. So I've got to do it for 3 days, over and over and over and over again. So each time I'm doing it, I'm trying to make the other actors hear something new. So I'm changing it, and I'm filling it, because I'm not on camera. He's only ever going to use my close-up on me. So now, but I've got to keep continuity going, because there's only one camera. It's all got to tie in and you edit. And we just had, and it was raining every day, and it was dark, dingy, and I was pulling down the flats we were filming in. And it was just the best experience of filmmaking. One of the best experience. Well, maybe the best experience of filmmaking in hindsight that I've ever had, because we were so against it and so against the odds, and we enjoyed it, but everyone enjoyed it. And even though it's the darkest, most heaviest film you can watch, it's very funny. But there's a love that comes through that screen. And I've said this to people, and I say this to you yesterday, I think I said it. There's a love that comes through that screen, because we're all loving what we're doing. And that works. In terms of that's a great highlight for me. Working with Mike was a great highlight. But I think the opportunity to work with Roman Polanski was certainly... I gave him the Bill Sykes that he wanted. You don't give Roman anything he don't want. And you don't give him... and what he does want, you make sure you give it to him. And he was... I think on a one-to-one, I've worked with Tony Scott, I've worked with Shaker Kapoor, I've worked with some very, very good directors, and all fantastic and brilliant geniuses in their own way. But Polanski's on another level. His eye for detail. It's like going to work with Napoleon.
Yeah.
Planning a battle. It's like every detail is just so thought through, and you have to be on set before him. You never arrive after him. It's a big no-no, but that old discipline, that old respect for the art, for the structure of a day's filming. You go off and you do certain telly that we may have mentioned and we may not have mentioned previously, and the discipline on the set is just. I was sitting with an older actress on it who's unfortunately not with us anymore. And we're sitting on the set, and she leaned over to me and she went, "Haven't got a fucking clue, have they?" And we're watching all these young, thinking that they're the bee's knees,
Wow.
And the discipline, and directors are going, I'm sitting there going, would not last 2 minutes outside of here. And invariably, none of them do. They always end up having to go back. So
I just want to give a shout out.
I think I gave a very bad clue there, didn't I? I think I've just grasped myself right up on that one.
I just want to say, I think we should give a big shout out to the extra that had the balls to bang into the back of your chair.
I think Gary made it. I think Gary made him do it. He ran, actually. No, I don't think he did, because he ran and hid behind a wall. He hid, and I would. But I went over to him afterwards, and I went, "Hey, mate," I said, "Come here." I said, "Now if we do the take again, you got to remember to hit the chair exactly at the same time. Remember, now I know you're all in bits now, but don't worry about it. It worked. Thank you very much. You've just given me something I can work with. So now do it again, And then he went, "Oh, you sure? I'm so sorry. You was really..." He went, I was listening to what you were saying. I went, no, forget all that. You just do it the same again the next time we do it,
You mentioned something earlier, and if you don't want to talk about it, it's absolutely fine, but you're talking about, obviously, Julie, and you said she...
Always talk about my darling.
And you said she saved your life quite literally. What did you mean by that?
I had a massive heart attack one Saturday morning.
Wow.
A massive heart attack. We were going out on the evening. We were going to watch Strictly Come Dancing. She loves Strictly Come Dancing. I might be a bit of a fan, but a mate of mine, Jake Wood, was in it at the time and doing very, very well. We were texting each other, and I phoned him up and said, "Oh, I'd love to come over, Jake." I said, "My darling, I love it over, you know." He went, "Yeah, I'll get you tickets." So we had tickets for the night, and at the time, my darling was going to Pilates every Saturday morning, and I went, "Oh, don't go to Pilates on Saturday morning. It's going to be like, you know, it's a long drive. It's right over at L Street. You know, I know the driver, and it's Saturday afternoon. It's going to take us a while, so we can just take our time easy and poodle over there." So she, thank God, didn't go to Pilates that morning. And then I made me a bacon sandwich, and I went down there, and I was a very heavy smoker at the time. And I went down, I was sitting in my study at our house in Bromley, and I was eating a bacon sandwich and had a cup of tea, finished the sandwich, lit a cigarette, watching a bit of sport on the Saturday morning, put the cigarette out. I don't really feel too clever. Oh, I can't breathe. I was getting all hot and I was trying to get me breathing together. And I thought, no, this don't feel right. I don't feel right. And we had at the time we had a 4-story townhouse, and it was 39 steps in this house, like the old Buckham movie, a book. And I walked up. I managed. Our bedroom suite was right on the top floor, the whole of the top floor. You know, get to the top thing, crawl up the stairs. I still can't take a deep breath, and I'm sweating profusely. And I said, I don't think we can do this. I've come over really dodge. And she had half her makeup on, like one eye and everything. And she took one look at me, and she went, "Are you all right? Are you really?" And I've ripped the dressing gown off, and I'm pouring with sweat. And then it hit me, and I'm not going to go into too much detail because I certainly will get very, very emotional. But suffice it to say, I'm having a massive heart attack, and it really, really hurts. Don't be kidded. I've acted heart attacks. Forget it. The pain is so intense. You never felt anything like it. It's like someone's got their hands in your chest and grabbing your heart and saying, "How do you want to be? Go on, how do you want to be? Hey, go on, you think you can live?" You know, it's really, and it feels aggressive and horrible. My darling, a couple of days before, I'd been going through the house and found the medical boxes, and my father had given me some of them 75 milligram aspirins. "Oh, you never know when you might need them, and you know, come in, you know what old ones are like." And then and so she knew where they were, and she flew down the stairs and run back up and said, "Take these and give me these free." Anyway, I'm screaming for help, like, "Get the ambulance here." God bless them. She's on the phone. She's run down the stair, all the stairs again to the front door to get the ambulance people, bring them in. 2 beautiful young women, paramedics. And I forget I'm 39 steps up, and so they've come all the way up to me, and I'm lying on the bed, and I did nearly go at one point. I was very, very close at one point because I said to myself, if you shut your eyes, the pain might go away. And then I suddenly realised if I shut my eyes, I'd die. So then I went, don't do that. What's the matter with you, you silly sod? You know, keep fighting, breathe, you know. So I kept trying to come back to it. And my darling, looking down on her face was just, it was horrible. And then all of a sudden, they whisked me in the ambulance and pumped me full of morphine, and our pain started going. And they got me in the ambulance and driving me down, and they didn't take me to the local hospital, thank God. They took me to King's College Hospital. And they said, and I'm halfway there, and they're red lighting, and you know, this is all so weird. And then when I got, and they said, oh, you have had an heart attack and you're still having one. Because you don't just happen, you know, it's like I was having it for about an hour and a half. And they get me to King's, rush me through, and really nicely they put a blanket over my head so no one would see me, you know, and make anyone taking pictures of me or anything like that, just in case they recognised me. Although I don't know what I must have looked like, but anyway, they got me into the cardiac department, and I had this most amazing man called Professor McCarthy, and did all the tests on me. They said, "You're safe now. We got you. We're going to look after you, and everything's all right. You know, it's not all right, but you're all right for the moment. And we'll see what we can do and see what we need to do for you." And then he went, and he came back and he went, "Well, you've had 2 massive clots," he said, and he said, but they seem to have dispersed themselves. I don't know how this is happening, how you're still sitting there. And I said, I said, my wife gave me an aspirin 2 aspirins he went, "That's what saved your life." So literally, she saved my life.
That's amazing. And you know,
but emotionally and spiritually, she saved my life many, many times. Yeah.
And fate seems to play a big part of your life with many things. You spoke about it today with how you met.
Well, now you mention it, it does. Fate
is,
I didn't really think of it about it before, but yeah.
But even not going to Pilates, it always meant to be.
Yeah.
But moving on to kind of what's next for you, because you spoke about Rise of the Foot Soldiers. It's a phenomenon. Every time.
Oh my God, it's great.
I love it. All my friends, as soon as you're ready to watch it. So what's next for you now? What projects are you working on?
I've got well, it's all, the phone rings, okay, oh, that sounds good. And it's very difficult to put things together, as we all know, in the business at the moment. Foot soldiers are a given. And the beauty of Foot Soldiers is we play with time. So we will do one film and then it'll go off on a little bit of a tangent. Like the last 2 have gone off on a bit of a tangent in a different direction, and there's not all of the characters in. And then I was told, "Oh, don't worry about this one, because then we're doing the next one, and that'll be 10 years before." So they jump time continuum, so we play around with it, but I really feel like I'm a part of it now. I feel like I've earned my spurs with with the character. And they keep coming back and saying, "Oh, we're doing the next one now, Jamin. Well, see you in Ibiza and see you in it." So I feel part of the family, and it really is a family. We're keeping the same crew all the time. Craig and I go way back. We're old mates, And my darling actually modelled with him and his wife, Elka, back in the 70s, 80s, I think, 80s, I would have thought. And so we all have a sort of history with each other. We're all good South London people, all know each other. And so that's really great. And so I'm going to stick with the Foot Soldiers. I'm really enjoying them. I love the character. We're trying to sort of tone them down into making them more accessible for a bigger audience, which I think they deserve.
Yeah.
And if we can do any kind of spin-off with it, we'll say. I know the boys are looking at that. So, I'll just take it day at a time now. And if something nice comes in, I'll go and do it. If nothing comes in, I'm quite happy not to.
And I guess we're both nervous for Wednesday, because I'm a massive Tottenham fan.
Oh, my God, my Spurs. Come on, you Spurs. We've got to get something out of this season, for God's sake. My mate's in the Tunnel Club, so when I go over there, I'm sitting behind them on the bench. And these when they say footballers start getting younger, I mean, they're like babies, some of them. I mean, they're like incredibly fit, beautiful young men. And you're watching them, and then they deserve something from this season, because it's been atrocious. I just wish we'd spend the money that other clubs spend. There's nothing wrong with buying it. Bring you've got the best stadium. For me, you've got the best stadium I've been in the world. Yeah. Football stadium. It is unbelievable, the place. And if you don't fill it with Harrods, you don't fill it with the best players in the world, then shame on you. And because you won't give them another $100,000 a week. When you're earning all that money out of that stadium, buy the best players in the world, and we'll win stacks.
Well, fingers crossed, Big Ange knows what he's doing.
Come on, Ange. Yeah.
You know, I asked you earlier in the interview, you know, your career highlights, and genuinely, when I say this, if someone asks me that question, this interview will be one of them. I've absolutely enjoyed it. I think everyone else here has. So, thank you so much, everybody. Jamie Foreman. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Great interview.